welcome back to another edition of Community Color, bringing you arts and entertainment right here from the Alberni Valley. Well, the current art exhibit at the Roland Art Centre is titled Women's Work. Now, this is from a group of 5 local artists, and they happen to be women, exploring their creativity. So please stop by the Roland Art Centre or check it out online at www.alberniarts.com. Well, the Community Arts Council is very excited to bring to you one fabulous tea on the terrace that's taking place right here at the Roland Arts Centre. Now, this event is happening on Friday, August 13th, right here at the Roland Arts Centre between 1 and 3. Tickets are $22 and we'll be serving a high tea, so a bit of a light lunch. And our musical guests are going to be Dennis Olson and Guy Lingois. So again, those tickets are available right now at the Roland Arts Centre for a wonderful afternoon of musical entertainment and a lovely light lunch. Well, don't miss out on the last 2 summer programs here happening at the Roland Arts Centre. Our last 2 summer camps are for ages 8 to 11, and our second last one is Puppet Palooza, and this takes place on August 9th to the 13th, and it starts at 10 a.m. till noon. And our last one is Paint and Draw, and it features portraits, and that happens on August 16th and goes until the 20th, again from 10 a.m. till noon. Now, this is a 5-day camp, so a little bit different than what we have done in the past. The weekly camps are $90 and you can register right here at the Roland Arts Centre. Well, the Roland Arts Centre has something new this summer for kids ages 11 to 13. It's called the Artist Grove. Now, this takes place every Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. They're workshops. Each day is something different, but it lets you explore your own creativity. So please call the Roland Arts Centre for more information. Well, the Community Arts Council is holding a special exhibit in October. The dates are October 5th through the 30th, so we're calling all local artists to submit 1 to 3 pieces for this special show. Now, what we're looking for is what you've been up to for the last year. So the last 18 months in this pandemic and maybe in seclusion in your own workshops, but please, we want to see what you're up to. So again, this deadline has been extended. The deadline now goes until the middle of September, and the exhibit itself starts October 5th. So please submit 1 to 3 pieces. If you want more information, you can contact me right here at the Roland Arts Centre. Well, the Community Arts Council is holding a summer workshop, and this summer workshop is called Exploring Florals. Now, this is an acrylic painting class, and it's with artist Susan Schaefer. Now, Susan comes from Qualicum, but please join us. We do have a few spots left. Registration is open. It's $110 plus GST, and it takes place here in the gardens at the Roland Arts Centre on Saturday, July 24th from 10 until 3 p.m. So sign up today. Well, as we sit in the wonderful canopy of the trees at the Roland Arts Centre, it's a great reminder to let everyone know that you can hold weddings here. We do have intimate weddings and now weddings of 50 people or less. So please contact me at the Roland Arts Centre for more information, because we do have spots still available for this summer for your magical day. Well, here's a great way to help funds at the Roland Arts Centre. Drop off all your bottles at the bottle depot. Now, all you have to do is bottle them up, bag them, and drop them off, and let them know that you'd like to donate your bottles to the Community Arts Council. It's that easy. Well, that's it for another edition of Community Color. Now, if your organization would like to share any upcoming events, please contact me at the Roland Arts Centre. So until next time, I'm Melissa Martin for Community Color.
Hello, I'm Captain Michael Ramsey of the Salvation Army, speaking on behalf of the Alberni COVID-19 Community Response again. And in the middle of summer, it's a real surprise if children come up to you and say, I want to go back to school. And if they're saying that because they're hungry, then there's a challenge. So every year throughout the school year, the Salvation Army supports the school lunch programs and the breakfast and lunch programs. And then throughout the summer, we're able to provide food for children and families in need. In this COVID time, the need has been especially significant. And so, as well as our normal breakfast and lunch program that we provide at the Salvation Army, we're also able to provide the After the Bell program. So between those 2 programs, they can come in any day of the week and pick up healthy, nutritious breakfast and lunch at the Salvation Army that can keep them going throughout the week. Now again, because COVID has especially hard hit so many children and families in need, we've been partnering with QS on their pop-up picnics. So we've been able to go around with QS to the various parks in town and provide picnics, lunches, healthy snacks for children and families in need at the parks. And as well as that, in normal times, the Salvation Army is able to provide an opportunity for children who wouldn't normally be able to go to camp to go away to a camp. Well, this year, of course, with COVID, we're not able to have the overnight camps, but we are able to have day camps. And so that's what we've got going on as well. We've got day camps, and at those day camps, of course, we're providing nutritious snacks, nutritious lunches. We are doing everything we can to help support the children and family through this particularly challenging time. And Port Alberni, I just want to thank you for all of your help, all of your support. Together, we're making a difference. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Dave Kusan from Community Policing. I'm here at the detachment today to talk to you about Project 529, our bike registration program. Actually, it's not our program, it's actually an international program now. That's the largest bike registry in the world. It was invented by the fellow that invented the Xbox, and he had his own bike stolen. So he created this amazing free app, and his goal is to register 10 million bikes in 10 years. So we follow along with this app, and it's very important for people to register their bikes because we get bikes like these turned in, almost brand new, and we don't know who they belong to. And we really want to get bikes back in the hands of their owners. We're having lots of bikes stolen these days, so register your bike. It's really simple. You take 5 minutes, you download the app from the App Store. It's called Project 529 Garage, and you use your smartphone or your iPad. It walks you through every single step. You take pictures of your bike, pictures of your serial number, and you can even get this cool little anti-theft shield. These shields are applied to your bike. They have a unique serial number that links to your account. So if an officer's out in the street, finds a bike, he can check that and determine whose bike it belongs to. These shields cost $12 online, but if you come to the detachment, prove to us your bike is registered, show us your ID, show us your app, we'll give you a shield so that you can link it to your app and get your bike fully registered. So please visit project529.com to get more information on this great way to register your bike. Help us take a bike out of crime by getting those missing bikes back into your hands.
Voyant Alert is a new emergency system that notifies subscribers about potential local hazards and emergencies. Voyant Alert can quickly notify users in the event of tsunami, flood, wildfire, or any other hazards that could threaten public safety. Voyant Alert is available to the city of Port Alberni and surrounding electoral regions, including the Bamfield area. Here are some answers to frequently asked questions. Voyant Alert is free, confidential, and anonymous, can be unregistered from at any time, GPS targeted notifications, and no passwords to remember. To register, search for Voyant Alert in your smartphone's app store and download like you would any other app. Open the app and use your address for the system to locate you.
This is Shelley Harding, Museum Coordinator and Education Curator with the Alberni Valley Museum. Adopting an artifact at the Alberni Valley Museum is a fun and easy way to show your appreciation for Port Alberni's history, cultural heritage, to connect with your favorite object and support the museum. Your tax-deductible contribution will help us preserve and protect the collection while also helping to support other museum activities, including exhibits, events, and school programs. The adoptions last for 1 year and enable the Alberni Valley Museum to continue to protect and preserve the history, heritage, and culture of the Alberni Valley for future generations.
The artifacts you see are some of the objects available for adoption. At the $75 level, we have this punch bowl and stand painted by Josephine Wark. Mrs. Wark is best known locally as the proprietor of Klitza Lodge at Sprout Lake. Painted around 1905, before she moved to the Alberni Valley, the pottery is an example of the fashionable hobby of painting on china. At the $100 level, we have this flapper-era wedding dress. It was worn by Dora Plant when she got married on New Year's Eve in 1924. Available for adoption at the $500 level is this hand-stitched dress from around 1850. In-house, we often refer to this one as the sleeve dress, as it comes with an alternate set of sleeves, so the wearer could change the look of her outfit. Available for adoption at the $1,000 level is this 19th century dugout canoe made by the well-regarded Nittinat canoe maker Sam Campbell. The canoe is unique and well designed due to the outward curve on the inside and was likely used for fishing. To receive a digital catalog with the complete list of available artifacts or to learn more about the Adopt an Artifact program, please contact the Alberni Valley Museum. Hello, this is Kirsten Smith, Collections Curator at the Alberni Valley Museum. Today on Museum at Home, we're looking at the Valiettes. Baton twirling and drum majorettes had become part of popular culture in Canada in the late 1930s and 1940s. It arrived in Port Alberni in 1948 with the Valiettes, a drill team sponsored by the BPO Elks. In existence for 8 years, from 1948 to 1956, the Valiettes took part in every major event held in Port Alberni and also traveled for parades and performances. They visited a number of places on Vancouver Island. Here we see them marching in a parade in Victoria. In 1951, a 15-car convoy transported the group to Duncan for a performance. They also traveled on the Lower Mainland and BC Interior, visiting Chilliwack, Mission, and Penticton. They performed at halftime at a BC Lions game in Vancouver, and they traveled across the prairies with a number of stops on their way to perform at an Elks convention in Saskatoon. The Valiettes were supported by the local Elks Lodge. When trying to hire a majorette group to be part of the Elks' annual May Day celebration, Elks leader Cliff Lee was put out by the $200 fee. He said, "Give me $150 and we'll have our own drill team." Early training for the group was provided by Bob Fulton, as well as Miss Robbie Brown and Mrs. Lois Tassie. These two women had experience in Canadian Women's Forces and assisted in the drilling. The name for the team was decided in a contest. Bob Fulton won a 2-pound box of chocolates for coming up with the name Valiettes. In the early years, members mainly made their own outfits: white blouses and skirts with a purple belt, tasseled boots ordered from Vancouver at $3 a pair, and homemade paper hats. The Fuller Brush Man was an Elks member and donated 32 pastry brushes to provide the plumes for the hats. In later years, the uniforms were made by seamstresses Ethel Best and Ivy Mackenzie. The satin uniform with purple cape was decorated with military-inspired buttons and braiding typical of majorette teams. The matching satin hat was emblazoned with the Elks logo. The team made their first appearance on May 24, 1949, as part of the Elks' May Day celebrations. The initial group had 32 members, 24 with 6 spares. The age limit at that time was 16 to 30, and many of the members were young married women. By 1952, the Valiette ranks were filled mainly with teenagers, and some drummers were younger than that. On April 29, 1950, the famed English entertainer Gracie Fields was brought in by the Elks to perform a concert at the Drill Hall, what we know as Glenwood, and the Valiettes provided an honor guard. It's a task they would repeat in Parksville in 1951, serving as honor guard for Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip. The group grew over the years, with reportedly up to 120 members, though the largest group photos show numbers closer to 60. The team expanded to include an acrobatic section, bagpipe, bugle, and drum bands. In this 25-year reunion photo, we see former members of the Valiettes modeling the different hats worn. This Glengarry hat was part of the band's kilted uniform. The era of the Valiettes ended in 1956, when organizational and expense difficulties led to the disbanding of the group. That's all for today. Thanks for watching the Alberni Valley Museum's Museum at Home.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Tim Ply. I'll be introducing speakers today. For those of you who do not know me, I'm an employee of the City of Port Alberni, also a resident, and I cannot express how pleased I am that we are all gathered here today on Sechot and Hoopachesset territory to take this small but very important step of raising Hoopachesset and Sashot flags at City Hall. I welcome you all, and I thank you for being here. Before we proceed, I want to ask you all to join me in a moment of silence in recognition of the children who were taken from their families and never returned. The children whose graves have recently been located, and the many more children who have yet to be found. A moment of silence, please. Clecco. I'd like to call on the city's mayor, Mayor Shari Minions.
Thank you for being here with us in this heat today and for sitting out here for what is really an important day for us. I'm so grateful to be here on the territories of the Sashot and Hoopachesset First Nations on a day that it feels like we've been waiting for a long time. Every year on National Indigenous Peoples Day, we fly the Sashot and Hoopachesset flags at City Hall to honor the territories that we're so privileged to live and work on. But this year, of course, is different, and today we are very proud to be raising these flags to be left up permanently. It was about 4 years ago that about 100 people marched from Harbour Quay up to City Hall, joined us in a council meeting, and asked us to do better. The Reconciliation March started a momentum in our community, and I'm incredibly grateful to every person that took part in that march. From that march, the Reconciliation Committee was born, and I want to recognize today the committee members, many of whom are here, for the work that they put in. Chief Councillor Brandy Lauder, Anne Robinson, Ian Benoit, Jim Tatouche, Wally Samuel, Sheena Faulkner, and the committee was proudly co-chaired by myself and then Chief Councillor Cynthia Dick. Our flag, thank you, yes, let's clap for them. Our flag raising today is just one of the 27 recommendations that were put forward as a result of that committee's work. And these recommendations have been integral to putting us on a path of healing, respect, and equity. Today we celebrate one of the accomplishments of these recommendations, but we hope, of course, that it will be the first of many. And while these recommendations are incredibly important, the real work and the work I'm proudest of is the relationships that we've been fortunate enough to build over the past few years. Relationships where we can truly work together and feel comfort, government to government, where we're building more trust every single day, and where we know that even if our approaches may differ, we're working together with a common goal of improving the community that we all care so much about. On behalf of my council, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with both Chief Councillor Lauder and Chief Councillor Watts, and I'd like to ask two of my councillors to stand and present them with a gift. We also have gifts for the two witnesses who are in attendance today from Hoopachesset and witnesses from Sashot, as well as any elders that are here. And while we're very thankful to be here today, taking what we see as a very positive and exciting step forward, I want to acknowledge the sadness and the hurt that many in our community are feeling at this time, with the tragic discoveries being made across the country. I won't pretend to truly understand what that feels like, but I do want to thank each person in our community who's had the courage to share their stories over the last few weeks. It's been an incredible experience to have the opportunity to hear some of these very personal and very difficult to hear stories of residential school times. And while it's not easy to listen to at times, I think it's incredibly important that we hear these stories so that we can understand as best possible, and so that we can remember how much compassion and empathy will be needed for moving forward. I also want to recognize that while we often feel these are events of the past and we're better now, and we are better now, just steps away today, a coroner's inquest began into the death of a young Indigenous mother of two who was lost from our community far too young. While it's too soon to predetermine what the outcome of that inquest might be, what we do know is that Jocelyn George was collectively failed by our society. As a community leader and as a mother, my heart breaks for Jocelyn and her children. I speak of this today because it shines a light on just how much work there still is to be done. I want to close today by thanking Sachot and Hupacheset just for being here today. I know that if we look to the past, we can see many reasons to not be here, to not trust, and to not engage. But if we want our future to look different than our past, if we want our children to be raised in a better world than we were raised in and that our parents were raised in, then we have to be here, we have to engage, and we have to be a part of the change. So I want to thank each of you for attending today as we celebrate one small step on our continued path to reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next speaker is MLA Josie Osborne. Josie is also the Minister for Municipal Affairs, and she will be bringing greetings, a message from our Member of Parliament, Gord Johns. Honourable Josie Osborne.
Thank you so much for having me here today, for always making me welcome on Hupacheset and Sachot territories. And I want to start by acknowledging the lands that we are gathered in today and the lands that I live in on the territories of the Taloquit people. It is a great honor to be here and to be invited to speak a little bit. And I want to make a few remarks not only about the event that's happening today, which is significant to see the relationship between the city of Port Alberni and between the nations on whose land this city operates and people live, but also to talk more broadly about the impact of and the meaning around National Indigenous Peoples Day. And of course, it is National Indigenous Peoples Day today, and it's a day where we honor the leadership and the resilience and the strength of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people across British Columbia and across Canada. It's a day where we recognize the immense contributions of Indigenous peoples to every facet of our communities, our society, our country. In past years, this has been a day of celebration and a day where we talk and celebrate the culture and all that it gives to the fabric of who we are. But today is also about a call to action of the greatest kind. And as we honor and celebrate Indigenous communities today, we must recognize the systemic racism, discrimination, and intergenerational trauma that Indigenous peoples have experienced and continue to experience. These harms are a daily and lived reality for Indigenous peoples. So today is a day of reflection, and particularly with what has happened, and already Mayor Minions has reflected on this, and I want to acknowledge and share the grief with everybody about what has been confirmed at Tecumloops to Schwetmik and all residential school survivors and their families as they mourn their stolen children. We know that we need to prepare ourselves for more of this to come to light, because we know there are many other sites throughout the province that are still a source of unanswered questions and unimaginable pain for Indigenous communities. So for so many of us non-Indigenous people, this has also been a time of a great unsettling. And it is time for settlers to be unsettled. It is time for us to listen, to learn to live with discomfort, and to take a deep and hard look at our own history. And I do want to speak to those of us here today who are not Indigenous, because clearly I am not Indigenous. It is my responsibility as a settler on these lands to understand my own colonial history and that of this province and that of this country. It is not just enough to learn about Indigenous history from Indigenous peoples. We have a lot of work to do. Reconciliation is a hard, important, and incredibly rewarding journey. We do need to take it together, and our government recognizes the responsibility that we have to advance reconciliation in partnership with Indigenous peoples. This is a journey that we must take side by side, but it's also a journey that we need to take alone, and we need to commit to this on a personal level. It's as deeply unsettling as it is to come face to face with the intention and actions of our predecessors. It is our responsibility to learn about it, to accept what has happened, and to do better, to do far, far better. It is time for us to look inside at our own implicit biases and admit that even today, systemic racism and discrimination still exists. I'm very honored to serve as the member of the Legislative Assembly. I take my responsibility incredibly seriously, not only as an MLA, but also as a minister of the Crown. And the honor of that relationship between the Crown and the Indigenous peoples, it's a weight, it's a responsibility that I am willing to bear and that I accept. And I make this commitment in front of all of you today. And I know that you will join me in this journey together. I'm very proud as well to be part of a government, as imperfect as all governments are, that has begun to wrestle with the implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And the Declaration and the Act that our government has passed is a touchstone on our path forward together. It's a path that recognizes and respects Indigenous rights as human rights, creates more opportunities for people and communities, and commits our government and future governments to action on reconciliation, not just to words. We need to be together and face that collective truth on the generational impacts of our colonial history to unsettle the settlers. We still have so much work in front of us. I'm proud to be here to join you today. I'm so thankful and grateful for the invitation to share food with you, to share this time together, and to be a part of today's ceremony. And to Sashat and Hupatchisitt, thank you for your patience, for your grace, and for everything that you've given those of us who live on your lands. To the City of Port Alberni, for your leadership and for stepping forward and being a part of this important today in the great heat that I will now use to close my remarks and pass on to you some words from Gord Johns, who, as you may know, is sitting in the house right now, virtually from his house up the road, and he sends this message. He regrets that he's unable to join us today for this momentous flag raising because of his parliamentary duties. He is here in spirit. Claco, claco to all those who have come together to make this happen for our community. May the winds of reconciliation bring these flags to life, and may they wave above our community in the spirit of love, truth, and understanding. Best wishes to all on this National Indigenous Peoples Day. Claco, claco.
Chief Brandy Lauder is feeling somewhat under the weather due to her COVID shot. I think I can share that, Brandy, and thank you on behalf of all of us for being here. And so in her place, we'll see Councillor Jolene Dick will bring greetings. Councillor.
Good afternoon. Hi. Uklama Suwayakowith. My name is Jolene Dick, and I'm an elected councillor for Hupatchisitt First Nation. I'm on my second term. The last time that I spoke in front of City Hall actually was a year ago. We were honoring Chantal Moore and her death and the inquiry into her death, and that's the last time I spoke here, but it reminds me of the momentum of when we were all standing here together as a call to action of the grassroots community that really wanted to say, we can do better. We need change. How can I help? And so I was thankful to work in partnership with the elected chief councillor at the time, Cynthia Dick, and we organized a walk for reconciliation because the discussion, just the discussion and the thought of changing a street name or a school name, everyone was upset, everyone was unsettled, all for very different reasons. Was it costs? Is it erasing history? Why are we doing this? Why is this a big deal? And then we've seen some really poor attitudes come out. And then all those that have been learning on this journey about Indigenous peoples knew that we could do better. So I'm thankful that we had that walk for reconciliation where we marched from Harbor Key up here and we told City Council how we felt and how changing things is significant to not only Hupatchisitt and Sashat, but to all the Indigenous peoples that live in the Alberni Valley, in Tsuma, us, our urban Indigenous peoples. I think of Wally and how much he messages me, Wally Samuel, as a member of the Reconciliation Committee, always saying, don't forget about the urban. So we cannot forget about the Port Alberni Friendship Center and all the services they offer to our people, to all people in Indigenous communities that live here. Going totally off script of these shorthand notes I made a few minutes ago. I too had a COVID shot and I have not been feeling too well, but it's great to be here to see these flags going up, 2 spots permanently for both nations. And I also want to share that even though Hupichessit put flags up many years ago, it is very much blending the colonial world and the indigenous world of these are the symbols and the crests of our nation, but it takes a lot of thinking of, is this our flag? So it is movement, we are getting there, and it is special. But when we think of Indigenous Peoples Day, we do need to go beyond just celebrating one day. June is Indigenous Peoples Month. So how can we kick off the month to learn and be with each other a little better and get to know each other a little more? Our languages are at risk, but it's super exciting to see that CBC has, not CBC, First Peoples Cultural Council has uploaded the Indigenous languages map recently, so you can check out some words and maybe we can have a conversation in our language with each other soon. I know that people know Chu and Kleko, and a lot more people are learning Uklama, but there's some of those special letters that like fogging your glasses, the sound, that we're gonna have to get there together with. I'm just thankful to be here today and to be able to speak on behalf of Hupichessit and my elected council members, Chief Councillor Brandy Lauder, Warren Lauder, Ricky Lee Watts. We started our term in April together, and we are getting in our journey canoe together to have our path forward, and to also join the city of Port Alberni and Sasha on the reconciliation journey. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to pass it off to back to our MC, Kleko.
Councillor Dick. Next is Chief Councillor from Sashat, Wamish Ken Watts.
Just wondering if somebody from the Charleston family or somebody could acknowledge and take this tashma on behalf of all of Sashat, if you could pass this along to their family. Maybe I could ask Roman or Wally if you could take this on behalf of the family and give it to them. And I just want to say our thoughts and prayers are with the Heshquit people and the Charleston family and the Galagos family. Chu Uklama, Wamish, Sishata, Hicha Mamuk, elected chief councillor, Uhukwach Iksu, Matilda Atleo, Sisha Aksup, Uhukwitach No Iksu, the late George Watts, Sisha Mitma. First, on behalf of our Hotwea, that's hereditary chiefs. Maybe we get some more lessons here for people that want to move beyond Chu and Kleko. Our Hotwea is our hereditary chiefs. Hotwith is one. So our first Hotwith, we have Kwatsapi from Makleat. It's Josh Goodwill there. I don't know if you want to give a wave just so everybody knows who you are if you don't know. And then we have Hista Kwahilshir, Sutit for Tsishat. Sorry, I was trying to pronounce your name, but I have a difficult time sometimes. Darlene Taylor. We also have, from our elected council here, we have Natasha Marshall Gallick. And we also have our elder Irene Robinson and our community member Tammy Lucas. First, for those of you who aren't aware, that little bit of business we did at the beginning, before we start things, we call it Ta'ashma, and it translates into Cain, and it's about holding up a family who's just recently lost, and so that's why I acknowledged the Charleston and Galagos family. So in this era of reconciliation, I'm hoping I can continue to help educate people about our cultural protocols. First, I want to acknowledge all of our community members and nations that are suffering losses recently. And I couldn't help but look down the road, and I saw the Lucas family and the George family come out of the theater here, and I could feel like a bit of a lump in my throat. And I really want to acknowledge them today. It must be a really difficult day today for them. I'd like to recognize our mayor and our MLA Osborne, and our MP Gord Johns, who can't be here today, as well as the rest of the city council. You know, I was asked earlier, what does this mean today? And I said, National Indigenous Day is a special day for Indigenous people, but it's also a difficult time today for many of our people that may be struggling with the recent news of Tecumloops. And it's been a tough time for us as Sishat and Nuu-Chah-Nulth. As many of you know, we had the former Alberni Indian Residential School in our backyard, and we have important work to undertake. But I also have seen our people come together in an amazing way, and it's really inspiring and empowering. And I told people I feel a lot of weight on my shoulders, but I also feel more supported probably than ever. And not just prayers and good energy from Sishat people and Nuu-Chah-Nulth, but every Canadian. That I get a call a day probably from somebody asking, how can I help? What can I do to help create a better place and ensure people know what happened? So I think today is an example of that. What we're going to be doing today is that recognition of not just territory, but a recognition of a relationship, that we're on a new journey together. And although this flag is, as Jolene said, not a traditional or Sishat or Nuu-Chah-Nulth recognition, maybe someday we can move towards a pole being out here in recognition of the territory as well. I want to just acknowledge some of the people that came before us. I was sitting here, looking around, and I was thinking about these flags we're raising, and I was sitting here thinking about all those people that came before us, before me, like my late father and many other leaders in the past that if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't even be standing here having a conversation. And I always think that they'd be really impressed about the moves we've made and the forward momentum we've made as nations. I just want to acknowledge some of the great work, for those of you who don't know, that we've done as Sishat and Nuu-Chah-Nulth people here with the city. If you head down to Tlukwakuis, our Wolf Village, you'll see a stop sign that's in our language. That might just seem like a little stop sign to you, but to me that's a big move in terms of our relationship and recognition. You'll see a mural down there. And then you'll, again, as Jolene mentioned, the Nupsi Kapis Way at the bottom of Roger. A.W. Neal being renamed, and there's much more to come. And I think that's what's exciting is I've been told by one of our elders pulled me aside before I came up here and said, it's important to acknowledge everything that happened in the past and to really feel for our survivors and all of our people. But what's equally important is that each and every person here to make a commitment to helping create a better country for our kids. I said that if each and every one of the Canadians in this country educated another person about residential schools, about Indigenous people, then we'd probably live in a lot better country than we do now. And so events like this and celebrations like this and raising a flag are just the beginning. So again, I'll tell everybody here that each and every one of you play a role with reconciliation. It's not just between us and the government or the city or the government of Canada or the province. Each and every one of you that are sitting here or standing here all have a role to play. And it's also about our kids. I hope that we can raise a generation of children that end racism. I hope that, I can't change the minds of some people, unfortunately, but we can raise a bunch of children who acknowledge and support not just First Nations, but all cultures. And we need to do better. We need to do a better job educating kids. And I think we're on that path now. So once again, on behalf of our Hatwea here and all of our elected council and over 1,200 members now, we want to thank the city for today and really looking forward to getting out of the sun for a second and helping raise these in a good way. So once again, on behalf of Sishat, our elders and our community that's here, we say Kliko, Kliko, Chu.
Thank you, Ken.
Chu, Kliko. Ukslasis Chabatuk. Istaksila Husit Chiklisit Kayukut. My name's Wally Samuel. I'm from Ahousit. I'm a residential school survivor right up here. Many of us have lived in the city of Port Alberni since the 60s. Many of us still live here. This is our home. We thank the Sishat and the Hupitchasat for always making us feel at home here. And the city of Port Alberni has always been there for us with the Friendship Center. The Friendship Center is our home for the urban Indigenous people. That's where we kept our culture and our ways alive there by our elders back in the 60s. And many of them were survivors. Many of them were survivors. A lot of them were contributors to the economy of the city of Port Alberni. Worked in forestry, in the mills, when it was booming here. And some of them still do. We're homeowners and tenants in the city of Port Alberni. We still practice our culture here. And we're always willing to share it, to let our brothers and sisters know about us, who we are. I was privileged to be on the Reconciliation Committee with the city and the two nations as an urban First Nations or Indigenous. We have about 3,000 Indigenous people that live in the city of Port Alberni from all across Canada. We have First Nations from all across Canada here. Anyway, I want to congratulate City Hall for acknowledging our two local First Nations, the Chishot and the Pichasets. And we look forward to a brighter future, to work together. Even in my lifetime, in the 60s, it was pretty hard to be an Indigenous person on the streets of Port Alberni. A lot of us had to fight our way, you know, but we survived. Many of our people survived. Now our kids are born and raised in the city and our friends is everybody. There's no more, there's less of that racism because we work together, we live together. We don't blame anybody today. What happened to us in the past, it was an old way, an old-fashioned way. A lot of us realize that. So we were looking forward to, again, working together, being together, living together. And again, I say, let's go to the city. True.
Thank you, Wally. I think we're ready to go now, folks.
Confirm that it says ACRD, register and check receive notifications, confirm, and you're all set up. You can sign up for other types of notifications through email or phone call at the link below. Share with your family and friends to help keep our communities safe.